All right, so we are back with video 5 of the GitHub Management XUI series. In the last one, we kind of set up this new table here. So we're going to go through and finalize what we were working on there. We're going to add some actions here, and this is going to involve maybe writing some forms to capture data. It's also going to involve working with the views a lot. But now that we have the URLs that link to those methods, we'll be able to build those out and get them to function. After the last video, I actually went just through real quick. I did add in the capability for the connection info list to now allow editing and deletion of those from this table. I'm not going to show that. That's just really simple. I already had all of this done. I say really simple. It's not super simple, but it's easy enough because I just copied this from another XUI from our ARM template XUI. It's something that I was already leveraging. So as part of the outputs of this video series, I expect that we'll probably have the entire XUI output, and you can reference this in there if you really wanted to see that. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get, instead of connection info, we're trying to get those additional 2 methods filled in, 3 methods, the create get config, edit get config, and delete get config set up. So I think that really so let's start there. Why don't we actually start with, normally I would start with the create action. Since you already have a base config here, I'm going to start with delete because I think it'll be pretty straightforward. I'm going to start by copying this delete connection info one here. And you'll see, I'm just going to copy here. So notice we start by doing the CI ID because that's what we were leveraging there. But we have our config name, and that's, again, that is our method of control here. We want to check our request method. If it is a post, what we want to do is we don't want to do a delete, or we do want to show a message and things like that. So we'll leave a lot of that in there. We're not going to have any protected errors. We don't care about that. That has to do with the connection infos themselves. But what we want to do is we want to set this up to delete everything that we're creating. So we're going to leave the messages there. I'm going to knock this back 4 spaces. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, so I don't know that I have a delete method yet for page my utilities. So get configs, set config data, get config data, get GitHub repos, get documentation. So why don't we do this? We're going to create another method here. We're going to call it delete get config, and we're going to take in the config name here. And we're going to let GitHub Copilot do some of this work for us. Okay, delete the get configuration from the custom field. The name of the configuration to delete, that's passing in, so we're good so far. So config data, we actually do need our custom field value because we're going to have to, actually we don't, which is really handy because we built that into set config data. So what we can do, thanks GitHub Copilot. So we're getting our config data, which is going to give us that object here. We're not going to say if config name and config data because that doesn't work. I don't believe. Let's check shell plus. This is real close, but not all the way there. So let's say config underscore name equals config 1. So we have our config name. Let's go ahead and get our config data. Imports from there we go. There's our config data. So we now have our list or our dictionary entry for the configurations themselves. Let's go ahead and delete get config data. Let's say if config 1 in config data We want to print yes. Oh, okay, so it's reading the keys. So that makes it really easy. It's just going to go out. If it exists, it's then just going to delete that key from the configuration data. So actually, I do want to add in one additional configuration here. So let's do set config data, delete get config, and then I'm going to do an add get config. I'm just going to do this now since versus doing this manually. Why don't we do, I'm going to pull in each of the elements for this because when yeah, let's do add get config. I do want a config name. Let's do type. Go. We're going to use those four, and then what we'll do is we're going to get our config data, and then to config data, let's see, get our config data. We'll have it back here. We're not going to do config. Equals. Type repo branch is going to create a dictionary that's then going to get added in config data here. We're then going to do set config data. So we now have add config data. Config name, though, we're going to do here. And we're going to set that as the key on the dictionary entry. Okay, so there we go. That should do the trick there. We're going to save all, exit shell plus. We are going to do our imports. And get config. There we go. So now we're going to do add get config, and then we're going to call this config. It's going to be inbound. Then repo branch. So now we've added a get config. We should be able to refresh here. And there we go. We see that our add get config method is working. We can come back over to here, and then we can do a delete get config. And this is just going to be by name, so we'll call it, let's delete config 1 at this point. And that should have written things back. Let's just be sure it's now gone. There we go. So our add and delete get config methods are working, so we can start to use those as, we did not do edit yet. I'm going to start with add and then delete just because we have those. Edit's going to be not trickier, but different. So we'll get to those here in a minute. Anyway, so we have add, we have delete. let's go ahead. And we could, for edit, maybe we do a delete and then an add. Could also work, right? You delete the original one and then just add it back in. Versus updating the key. Either way works. It really doesn't matter one way or the other. Actually, we're here. Let's copy, add, and we'll do edit. So add, edit, git config. And this is going to be the same exact information we need from the other one. We're going to edit the git configuration. Actually, we need to update these. Where does it see? That's a little better. Accurate documentation is always helpful. And then I'm going to do the same thing, edit here. There we go. Edit git config. Okay, so just adding documentation in there. Okay, so now instead of this, we are still going to create our config. We're going to get our config data. Actually, this is the same. Actually, edit. I don't think we need edit. I think we can call it create, because what it's going to do is it's going to overwrite this key. So we don't need an edit at all. The create will do the exact same thing. So maybe what we do, instead of calling it add, maybe we call it add for edit git config. That way. Add or edit. Okay, so now we have a multi-purpose one. Yeah, the same one will work for either. So it's basically an overwrite action at that point. So we have our two methods. These will delete a git config, add or edit a git config, and we're going to call these as part of the functions that we're running. So delete, we know that works. We just tested that out. So we're going to copy this, go back over to our views. Instead of ci.delete, we're going to do delete git config. What I find is interesting, since these are named the same thing, that's not going to work. I need to make this unique. Maybe we do utilities. So I think we can import utilities. This just tells us that we're referencing the utilities module. It is a similar function call, but what we're going to do is, instead of, we're going to do get management.utilities, and then that allows us to have our main delete git config, but also still have it in that shared Python module that where we're calling these things from. So we'll delete the git config here. Here's our messages. We're going to say, instead of the connection info was deleted. I can't stand, I'm a big fan of f-string formatting here. Yep, big name was deleted. So this is going to give the user a little blue pop-up at the top. It says that we've now deleted something. So it shows them in action. This HTTP response direct should return them back to the page. So we did an if statement that says, if it's a post, we're going to delete it. Then we're going to give them a message. If it's not a post, this is going to give them a warning. And the warning is going to end up being string formatting, delete. Just want to warn them and prevent them from deleting it if they don't want to. This action is not reversible. So this is kind of the confirm that this is actually what you want to do. Instead of armci delete, we need to go back to our URLs. I don't remember what we called it. It's going to be delete get config delete. So this is the URL that it's going to return after we hit submit. Yeah, so here's the button that is going to draw on the screen for delete. Here's the action URL that we're going to return, which means that after we press this delete button, after we confirm it, it's going to come back with a post, and that post is going to actually, it's going to run this method then. So we do want them to confirm in this instance. Again, I don't like that. This, that, this. Config delete, config name. I think we are good to go. So let's go ahead and test out our. Actually, let's do add get config, and we're going to do outbound. We're going to call it this way. We have a couple of tests with it. We're going to recreate config 1. We're also going to create a config 3, maybe config 4. Why not? Okay, they're now in our database. We have all of the different configs here. Now what we can do is we need to restart Apache and then see if our delete function is working. Okay, so now we have the delete function. We're going to go and take config 1. The other thing I could do is sort this table, right? I like to have a good sorted table. Right now, the arrays are sorted in the element of the way that they're sorted in the dictionary that we're caching. So maybe what we can do is as we store that dictionary, we can sort it by the keys that are available in it. So might be something worth doing. I don't know. Anyway, we have config 1. Let's go ahead and delete config 1. We should see a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to delete this? And we see a pop-up that says that the server is not responding. So we're going to go into our application log. Error. Let's see. It does not like the delete. Dictionary object has no attribute headers. That is on. Following things backwards, see if we can find. Response, just kind of following the stack trace backwards. Did we call headers in here somewhere? Headers is not in here anywhere. I'm not entirely sure. Just kind of suspect that there's a facing error there. I'm not sure. I'm actually going to cut this video short. We'll pick this up back on the next video. I have to jump for a call, but thanks for sitting in.